Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Paris Schutz is on assignment. On the show tonight, the McCormick Place is officially out of the running for Chicago's casino. New details on which 3 bids made the cut. Humanitarian efforts are underway in Lviv, Ukraine, as a medical student in Chicago with family in that western city is also organizing aid.
This was more than a game. This was history.
And the 1963 Loyola Ramblers are known for competing in the game of change. And now a new documentary details what those players experienced while being black in the 60s. But first, some of today's top stories. Day 2 of confirmation hearings for President Joe Biden's Supreme Court nominee. Ketanji Brown Jackson took questions from Republican senators on her judicial philosophy while defending her sentencing record of child pornography offenders and representation of Guantanamo Bay detainees. Jackson's currently a federal judge on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. She was also questioned on her religious background. Here's what she had to say in response to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
Do you attend church regularly?
Well, Senator, I am reluctant to talk about my faith in this way just because I want to be mindful of the need for the public to have confidence in my ability to separate out my personal views.
If confirmed, Jackson would make history as the first black woman to serve on the nation's highest court. A major fire takes out an Albany Park discount store. The Chicago Fire Department says customers and staff were inside JoJo Discount Outlet home line when the fire erupted earlier today. People escaped from the building as thick smoke flooded the North Side neighborhood. No injuries were reported. The fire department says the entire building will have to be torn down. More would-be police officers are applying for the job now that the Chicago Police Department has waived the college credit requirement.
One day we announced we had 400 candidates applying that one day, and we've had continued spikes of applicants over that time. In addition, we don't have 1,500 vacancies. We have somewhere around, it's in flux because people retire every day, but somewhere around 1,100 vacancies.
The new policy was created to help spur department applications amid an increase in police vacancies. The waiver applies to recruits who have 2 years of military or peace officer experience or 3 years in corrections, social services, healthcare, trades, or education. Meanwhile, Superintendent Brown noted homicides are down 17% this month compared to March of 2021, while shootings are down 14%. Overall, this year, CPD says homicides are down 4% compared to January through March of last year, and shootings are down 8%. Up next, new details about Chicago's future casino. Stay with us.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
What started with 5 is now down to 3. 3 finalists for a Chicago casino, that is. Chicago officials announced their top picks for the long-awaited facility earlier today. And WTTW News reporter Heather Sharon joins us now with more details. Heather, remind us what city officials hope that a Chicago casino will bring to the city.
Well, once a Chicago casino is fully up and running, which will take some time, even under the best scenario, it will generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million for the city. Now, that is already earmarked for the city's woefully underfunded fire and police pension funds. The casino will also generate thousands of jobs, and city officials said today they're hoping that it will attract tourists to come back to Chicago as the city continues to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, so which 3 casino bids made the cut?
Well, the 3 firms that submitted proposals are still in the running. That's Rush Street Gaming, led by Chicago billionaire Neil Bloom, Bally's Casino, and Hard Rock Casino. Now, the River 78 Casino would be built on what's going to be known as the 78, a new neighborhood south of the Loop but north of Chinatown. Bally's Casino would be built on the site of the Chicago Tribune newsroom and printing plant in River West, and the Hard Rock Casino would be built as part of a massive development known as One Central, which would be built south of Soldier Field over the train tracks there. That development has yet to be approved by city and state officials.
Okay, so neither of the two bids that were slated for McCormick Place made the cut. What's happening there?
Well, the people who run McCormick Place say both bids, one on the north side of the facility and one on the south side of the facility, would have made it impossible for the convention center to keep attracting big shows and to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And the city officials said today that neither proposal would generate enough revenue to replace the space that the convention center was set to lose.
Now, of the three finalists that we do know about, is there a front runner?
Well, for months, people have thought that Neil Bloom's Rush Street Gaming had an inside track. He is a Chicago native. His family is close with Mayor Larry Lightfoot, and he's well known to the people who will be making this decision. But all three proposals have pros and have cons. We won't know until the early summer which proposal Mayor Lori Lightfoot favors, and then that proposal will have to make it through the city council and then the Illinois Gaming Board. So this is just one step in what's already been a very long process toward a Chicago casino.
Got to keep waiting. Heather Sharon, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brandis.
And you can read Heather's full story on our website. That's WTTW.com/news. Up next, local relief efforts underway for Ukrainian refugees. Stay with us.
Thousands of Puerto Ricans are taking to the streets to protest massive blackouts.
Over the years, Mexican culture, from food to music, has become woven into the city's tapestry.
Medical professionals share the latest recommendations on COVID-19 booster shots.
DACA recipients have been facing longer delays than normal in their status renewal.
Little Village is one of my favorite neighborhoods. This neighborhood comes together to celebrate such an important day in our culture.
It's been nearly 1 month since Russia invaded Ukraine. With more than 3.5 million refugees fleeing their home country, the United Nations is calling it the biggest humanitarian crisis since World War II. Efforts to help those refugees are springing to action across the world, including here at home. Joining us now is Dmytro Misak, a first-year medical student at Rush University. He was born in Ukraine, but immigrated to the U.S. as a young boy. And Dmytro, thank you for joining us. First, if you would, tell us a little bit about your personal story. When did you leave Ukraine, and what was that journey like at the time?
So thank you for having me. My name is Dmytro Misak. I was born over there in Ukraine, and I came over here when I was pretty young. I was only 3 years old when I came here. So I don't really remember too much about what it was like back home, besides just stories from my parents and, phone calls and trips to go back to visit since then.
What have your parents shared with you about what that journey was like for you and your family, and why it was important for them at the time?
They wanted to seek better opportunities here in the U.S., so they did their best to get over here. We won some green cards, and then we had the opportunity to settle into the United States and start a life for ourselves over here.
Now, you still have family in Ukraine. Who's there? Where are they? And what do you know about how they're doing right now?
So I currently have my extended family over there. I have uncles, grandparents, cousins. They're all living in Ukraine on the western side in Lvov. And currently they're actually harboring refugees from other parts of the country, but they're not out of the danger themselves. They're actually, seeking shelter. At times, whenever the air raid alarms goes off, they're seeking shelter. So they're trying to make the best out of the situation, but they're definitely struggling.
And you say Lvov. I've heard it pronounced both ways, Lvov and Lviv. But it should be noted, those are the same city that you're referring to in the western area of Ukraine, correct?
Yes, bordering Poland.
So, as we've been discussing, Russian missiles have been hitting that western city of Lviv, where your family lives. How are you and your family sort of dealing with that uncertainty about how everyone's doing?
We're constantly making phone calls. We're phoning each other here in the United States, checking in on each other here. We're calling them over in Ukraine just to make sure they're okay every night. every morning. But we're just taking it day by day. It's an unprecedented situation for us. We never expected to be dealing with something like this. So we're just taking it day by day.
Tell us about how you got started. You're working on some of your own organizing efforts for relief. What have you been gathering, and what's going on?
So since everything started, I was feeling a little bit hopeless, but at that point I realized that I could have a role in helping the people back in Ukraine. So I started getting involved. I started getting in touch with different programs. One program, Humana, they specialize in sending over medical equipment over to Ukraine. We ran a fund driver here at Rush to collect humanitarian aid. So I'm always on the lookout for more opportunities, and the Rush one actually just ended, so I'm looking for more donation drives or for fundraising.
What are you hearing from other people who are also trying to help, and those who've worked with you?
So currently the issue is a logistical issue. So there's actually a few charities that I work with. They're sending out packages, but unfortunately don't really have the funding to keep sending out packages. So they have warehouses full of humanitarian aid, but unfortunately don't have the funding to actually get it across seas. So that's going to be one of my next initiatives, to fundraise that money to actually get it across seas to Ukraine.
So money is the thing that you need right now to get that done. What you mentioned packages being sent over. What does that entail? What is the aid that people need?
So right now they need just everyday supplies. Recently, my cousin told me that they need just razors, just basic items, shaving cream, toothpaste, toothbrushes, just every household things that we don't actually think that can ever go away. They're currently looking for right now, on top of medical supplies, dental supplies. But really, the humanitarian aid is something that we're really trying to focus on.
Has your family in Ukraine considered leaving? Are they considering fleeing to a neighboring country?
I think everybody's considering leaving to Poland, but unfortunately they're proud Ukrainians. That's their home, that's where their family is, and they're waiting to the absolute last minute to leave, and they just haven't seen that currently to be the time to leave. So they're still waiting it out, and they're just hoping for the best over there.
Is it difficult for you to see, to be all the way here, to see your homeland invaded across the world while you're a first-year medical student, so you've got a lot to juggle? Is that difficult for you to watch all of this going on?
It's incredibly difficult. It's been difficult since the first day it started, but just seeing the Ukrainian pride, seeing the people rally behind the cause and just putting up a fight, and it makes me feel good. It makes my parents feel good, my family. Just being proud of what we stand for and what that country stands for, because right now it stands for freedom over there. They're fighting for their own freedom.
Dimitro, as a Ukrainian American, obviously with family in Ukraine, what would you like viewers to know about this conflict and about the people of your home country?
Right now, Ukraine is fighting for all of us. The things that we're seeing right now in Ukraine, it could be representative of a bigger issue. So right now, Ukraine they're holding the burden for all of us, and we should really pray for them. We should really make sure that they rally through at the end of the day, because if anything were to happen to Ukraine, we can only guess what can happen after that. So this isn't just a Ukrainian fight. This is an American fight. This is a European fight. So I think that should really incentivize especially the viewers here to rally behind this effort.
And as a future doctor, I imagine, are you viewing this humanitarian crisis through a medical lens?
I am through the medical lens, through the humanitarian lens. It's been difficult to see, because in the U.S. we're blessed to have the supplies that whenever we need a surgery, if it's urgent, we'll get it. But over there, just sending out these supplies, we're constantly thinking of what they may need at the hospitals that they don't have, what they may need to give the children medicine that they don't have. So it's been incredibly difficult to see it. And, being here in the U.S., it's been incredibly privileging to see all the equipment that we have at our disposal.
Okay. Dimitro Masak, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck to you and your family in Ukraine.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Up next, the story of the 1963 Loyola Ramblers, featured in a new documentary. But first, a look at the weather.
Don't ever miss Chicago Tonight. Subscribe to our podcast. Get a daily download of our show delivered to your desktop or mobile device. Go to WTTW.com/Chicago Tonight Podcast and subscribe.
This year's Loyola men's basketball team may have been bounced from the NCAA tournament already, but fans can still bask in a new film highlighting Illinois' only championship team. The Loyola Ramblers won the championship in 1963 while breaking racial barriers along the way. The 4 starting black players on the team, Jerry Harkness, Les Hunter, Ron Miller, and Vic Rouse, made sports history when they played the all-white Mississippi State Bulldogs in the second round of the tournament. Mississippi State went against their own governor's orders to not cross state lines and play an integrated team. That game is now known as the Game of Change. But the '63 season was groundbreaking for many reasons, as shown in the new documentary, The Loyola Project. Here's a look.
My name is Lucas Williamson. I was a freshman in 2018 when the Loyola Ramblers made it to the Final Four. For the first time in 55 years. We were always told how the '63 team made history. But it was in the forgotten details that I found a deeper connection.
Our absolute and unshakable stand for segregation of the races at all levels.
This is not 200 years ago. These are our fathers and our grandfathers that have gone through this. This was more than a game. This was history.
It's time the rest of the world hears their whole story. About those who changed the game by playing it their way.
On Chicago Tonight Black Voices, we recently spoke with the film's director, Patrick Creedon, as well as Ron Miller, a starter on the '63 team, and Lucas Williamson, the film's narrator, co-writer, and current captain of the Ramblers. I began by asking Creedon what stuck out to him about the '63 team.
First of all, being a Chicagoan, I was shocked that I really didn't know the story. I'm a sports fan. I grew up in Chicago. I went to Fenwick High School. And yet somehow this story was new to me. And it really wasn't until the 2018 Rambler Cinderella run to the Final Four that the '63 story started to be told again. And it seemed to us that not only was it a great story, but it also seemed that there was a lot about the story that hadn't been told yet. That's why my wife and I decided that this would be just a great project to do. We've spent 2.5 years making it, and we can't wait to share it.
So Ron Miller, the Loyola Project, of course, it gets into the game of change between the Ramblers and the Mississippi State Bulldogs, but that's really just one part of the story. And that larger story, it details the discrimination that you and your fellow black players experienced. Talk to us a little bit about what being a black basketball player at Loyola was like for you at the time.
It was a very fascinating time, the '60s. I've always thought about this country as there's really 2 phases of that kind of set the course for what was going to happen in the future. The first phase was the Great Depression, what people went through in their 30s to get out of the Depression. And then the next phase was the '60s, all the social issues that have been underneath the surface of the country came to a head. You had Vietnam, you had Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement. It was a very unusual time, very exciting time. I'm really delighted that I was a part of that, small part of it, just with our basketball, because it showed the importance of being able to participate in full society and not just a corner of it. And Loyola gave us all a great opportunity to further our education, to go forward into the world. And I think it opened up a lot of our eyes, the black players in particular, of what was in front of us. And it just wasn't this little small world that we all kind of grew up in, but it showed us that there was a whole world outside of that. And Loyola gave us an opportunity to see all of those things. We were kind of, if you look at it in 1960, we were kind of outsiders in a way. We were part of universities, but we were not. In other words, fraternities wanted us to join, wanted us to come to their mixers, their dances, their parties, but they wouldn't allow us to join. So you're kind of inside, but you're kind of on the outside at the same time.
Right,
So
like in the film, for example, you're invited. They asked you to attend the party, but you were told you needed to stand along the wall, and you couldn't actually dance. For example, if someone wanted to dance with you, what was the response from your coach or your fellow white players when you all were experiencing what you did, whether it be at home on campus or on the road?
Well, I'll tell you, I was talking with Jack Egan, who was also a part of that team, just the other day, and we were talking about the same thing. And I noticed in the film and listening to conversations from some of the players that the white players in particular didn't notice it as much. Now, this is hard for me to say. I've had disagreements with my daughters about this, but even me, Jerry, Les, Vic, Rich Rochelle, we were not totally upset about some of the things that were going on because our expectations were not that we were full members of the society or full members of Loyola. So in that sense, we kind of accepted it, and yet we were able to participate at a certain level. And remember now, we're 17, we're 18, and the only thing we care about really was we just want to play basketball. So some of the social things that were in 1961, 62, and 63 were there, but they were not at the surface like they were a few years later. So it's kind of hard to explain and without sounding very passive, because we were not passive, but yet we wanted to, the most important thing to us in those days, really, we just want to play basketball, honestly.
And I want to get Lucas Williamson. Sorry, I just want to I want to get Lucas Williamson in before we run out of time. Lucas, you said that one of the things that stuck out to you was the experience that Ron Miller and his teammates had both at home and on the road. Why did learning that part of their history in particular upset you? Why did you want to be a part of this project?
Yeah, because, I just drew parallels to what I know in my experience here at Loyola today, and it's just completely different. Things that they had to go through upset me, and it kind of struck me away from the court. Like, the things they had to go through away from the court kind of struck me kind of in kind of left field, because it just doesn't make sense in my world. Like, some of the things that they had to deal with, like not staying in the same hotel rooms as some of their white teammates, it just doesn't make sense from a logical basketball standpoint for me. Like, there's so many things that we have to do as a team, not let alone team bonding, but when we're on the road, and for like, a coach to not allow that for a coach to allow that to happen just doesn't make sense for me. But yeah, like, I wanted to come onto this project because this story means so much to me. I share the jersey as a lot of these, or as all of these guys. And I mean, I just think that it's a great story, and it should be told, and it should be known.
Patrick, of course, a lot is known about the game of change itself, or more is coming to be known. But this film, it goes beyond that, and it looks like you did that intentionally. Why was it important for you to broaden the story beyond the game of change?
Because I think for people who know this story, there's two things that they know about the story. They know about this coach who broke the unwritten rule and played 4 black starters. People also know about the game of change. That's really more about the Mississippi State team and what they did to play in that game. It seemed to me that the players on the Loyola team were in the background of the story, or at least the way people knew this story. What we decided to do is, let's tell the story about the guys on the team. What was it like for them to play together? What was the dynamic with them and their coach? What was it like to be on the road? What was it like to play at home? What was life on the court? More importantly, what was life off the court? So this is really kind of like, it's kind of a buddy movie. It's about these 5 guys and how they lived together and played together and did what they did. And so all we really wanted to do with the Loyola Project is take the 5 starters and put them front and center. This is really their story. This is what they went through during their amazing season. And that's what the people are going to see. And I think that's why the movie is so terrific, because you hear them tell their story and share their story with Lucas and with his teammates. And it's just terrific. It's very moving.
I wish we had more time to talk about it because it is a very moving film. And if folks want to know more, then they'll have to watch it. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much to Patrick Creedon, Ron Miller, and Lucas Williamson. Back to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
And that's our show for this Tuesday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night live at 7. And up next on WTTW, Jay's Chicago. Now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that's proud to serve its community through pro bono legal services.